Ben.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning. Welcome again to Senate Judiciary. We have three bills that we'll take up this morning, beginning first with the Chancery Court jurisdiction amendments. But I think what I'm going to do, committee, is set that aside because I see one of the good representatives come in, and I'm hopeful that maybe the representative can help us with the other two bills first, because several of us are on both of those. Representative, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I just thought I better sneak across the hall and see if the sponsors of the bill, a couple of these bills were here. I say they're not, so I might jump in if I can.
Well, that is much appreciated, Representative Crago. And I think let's do, if you don't mind, we'll take up House Bill 111 first, and then maybe that will give Representative Stith an opportunity. I'm sure he's busy on appropriations today. We're on third reading. Never thought about that when I put the bill up. So, but these are good little bills, and I want to see if we can't get them up on the floor. Representative, can you walk us through, maybe give us a few thoughts on House Bill 111, how that went on the other side? And
sure, Mr. Chairman, I'm just pulling it up real quick.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Barry Crago, House District 40. Happy to present House Bill 111 this morning, which is the Endangering Children Fentanyl bill. Essentially what this bill does, we already have a statute pertaining to child endangerment for methamphetamine. This just enlarges that to include fentanyl. As you all know, it's becoming a huge problem around the country, around our state, and we're having a hard time getting our arms wrapped around the problem, and this would just be another tool for our local law enforcement agencies to use to address that problem. And it's narrowly tailored because of how that statute's written. It's really, being in the same room, and methamphetamine has the ability to cause, without ingestion or use, to actually cause problems for anybody that's around it. Fentanyl's the same. In fact, it can be much more deadly. And so the intent of the bill is to cover that situation and make child endangerment include that particular drug. And it's really that straightforward. We didn't have any problems on the House side as far as passing it through. I think everybody understands the problems we're dealing with there.
Representative, thank you for that. We were reminded yesterday on a different bill. In fact, it was Senator Schuler's bill that you may look at later on in the session. This is a drug that's actually used quite often. And so I think this is stored properly and some language in here. That's really where that's aimed, is it not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so if you look on the engrossed version, there's also some language that carved out the fact that there are prescriptions for fentanyl. And so that's carved out as well. And so, yes, that's the idea, is that we're really talking about the illicit drug, not everyday use that can be prescribed by a doctor. So,
well, thank you for that. Any questions of the representative? Go ahead, Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I see where the amendment that Representative Crago was talking about was put on in the House Standing Committee, the unless properly stored and pursuant to valid prescription, and they added the word illicit. And it also looks like there was a committee of the whole amendment that was refined by Representative Oakley on the committee of the whole. It'll never happen, but this could be, unless properly stored, that means with the cap on and put away. So I'm an elderly person and I've got prescribed pain medicine. I keep it by my nightstand. I can't get the dang tablets off or the caps off, so I leave it open, and my grandchild or the neighbor kid gets it. I've now done this. And I realize that's far-fetched. No prosecutor's going to do that. I get it. I'll vote for this bill. But anyway, I'm just pointing that out.
So, Senator, thanks. And Representative Crago, was there any discussion on that front? It sounds like maybe there was. This bill did receive some good work on your side. So, and you practice in law. So what are your thoughts on that front? Do we have it locked down good enough?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Case. It was actually that we didn't talk about that on the floor. I mean, that was not a discussion that actually came up. I mean, there were amendments that were brought in to address the medical professionals' concerns, which was the illicit drugs and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that was necessarily a concern, I guess is what I would say. And it was not discussed, but it's a valid question. I think it's a valid point. I suppose that, could be a crime, but I think somewhere else already in the statutes, I believe it wouldn't probably be a felony to this level, but I think, we already have a duty to keep kids from ingesting drugs that don't belong in their body. So this would be a different level, I think. And I can't remember where that is, but I'm pretty sure there is one somewhere in the green books, but I don't know the citation off the top of my head, Senator.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions of one of the House sponsors who was good enough to join us this morning? Okay, thank you, Representative. Representative, if you can stay put, we'd love to have you here for the next one also, but I would welcome any testimony on.
Before that, may I have a housekeeping moment?
Absolutely, go ahead. Senator Case.
So Representative Stith says he could be here in 20 minutes.
Okay.
Would that work?
I think it's likely to work.
Okay.
The next one, I don't expect to take a whole lot of time either, Senator. So,
Okay.
So House Bill 111, let's go to public testimony. I see, come on up, Mr. Winnie.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie, Sublette County. We've reached a point where with fentanyl, the hazard is dust. We have law enforcement wearing plastic gloves when they work a car or something like that because of a hazard. There was even a TV clip the other day of a deputy somewhere, I forget where, that was out for about 10 seconds, administered Narcan, and brought back up very quickly, thankfully. But the issue is dust. I would note that properly manufactured fentanyl, there is a medical utility to it, would leave probably zero residue or very little. The other thing I would also note is most bottles have child-proof caps on them. Well, I'd never underestimate the ability of a child to anyway get around those, but they certainly make it difficult. And so I support the bill. Illicit fentanyl is going to leave trace dust in a lot of places, and kids can come by it even without going to try and get the pills. They can come on the dust, and then because of their physical size, probably succumb to even lesser amounts. Subject to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Winnie, appreciate it. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Long time no see. Mr. Von Bush, good to see.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I try to avoid the Judiciary Committee because you have so many sticky issues. My name is Kevin Bond. I'm blessed. I'm the Executive Director of the State Board of Medicine. And our
It's good
board
to see you again, by the way.
Thank you,
Kevin.
sir.
Thanks for being here this morning.
And
Go
you
ahead.
helped us with the medical licensing compact, and it has done amazing things for us. So thank you. The board is very happy with this bill. I'll tell you that there were two things that needed to be addressed, and they have been addressed. When this original language was here, and it only spoke to methamphetamine, nobody really realized there was a legitimate use for methamphetamine. It is actually prescribed, not many times, but it is, as other amphetamines are. So what happened was at the top of page 2, line 1, it originally said notwithstanding such and so. Well, that what it was notwithstanding was in another section saying, if you use a legitimate prescription, it's not a problem, because the thought was there's no legitimate use for methamphetamine. So they said notwithstanding, and as an attorney, I hate that word. It's to say, in spite of that exemption, you're going to get busted for it. And so fortunately, on the House side, they took that out because that really just confused issues. And then the other thing they added in was indicating pursuant to a valid prescription or order. Because, for instance, in pediatrics, there are the occasions where there will be use of methamphetamine because other amphetamines haven't worked to treat ADHD or things like that. In addition, there are legitimate uses of fentanyl for pain, pain in a burn victim, or orthopedic pain, or long-term cancer pain. Kids get it too. And so we wanted to make sure that just because an ER physician said, I got to give the kid fentanyl because they're in so much pain from these burns, they weren't going to get in trouble with this statute. So those two amendments made this bill much better for the prescriber perspective. And I'd be happy to answer questions from my limited knowledge if I can.
Any questions of Mr. Bonnebush this morning? Let's go to Senator Furphy and then to Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, where it talks about manufacturing fentanyl. Is that very feasible for an individual to manufacture fentanyl? Just curious, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Furphy, I'd probably have to defer to DCI and the pros in the field, but it seems like everybody seems to be a do-it-yourself chemist anymore. And I know there are operations that do it that aren't pharmaceutical facilities. So I suspect that there are those enterprising individuals out there that do that. But again, I'd defer to DCI on it for sure.
We actually, Mr. Bonnebush, they're having a 7:30 meeting with some of the officials who know that part of the world, the endangering of kids. We're going to talk about that on Monday morning. Look forward to that because I think we can touch on some of this area right here, Senator. Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up on one of the things you mentioned about methamphetamine, I'm just real curious as to know what legitimate uses we have for methamphetamine, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Schuler, it's like other amphetamines, and so those are oftentimes used to treat ADHD because it's counterintuitive in my mind, but it works, and that is by giving somebody that gives them more focusing power, you actually treat the ADHD, and the amphetamine will do that. So I think the Board of Pharmacy said there are something between 40 and 60 prescriptions filled per year in Wyoming for legitimate methamphetamine. So this is just saying if the physician prescribes it, then it's okay, but otherwise, no.
Further questions? Kevin, thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
Good to see you. Thanks for being here this
My
morning.
pleasure.
Any other testimony? Judy, anyone online who would like to testify on House Bill 111?
There's no one with their hand up.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to close testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure on this bill? Moved by Senator Cooper. Discussion? Are there any amendments?
I think it very well worked.
I commend the House side for the work that was done, Representative, and thanks again for showing us this bill. Judy, would you take roll on House Bill 111, please?
Senator Case?
Aye.
Senator Cooper?
Aye.
Senator Furphy?
Aye.
Senator Schuler?
Aye.
Chairman Landon?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there are five ayes on House Bill 111.
Okay. I'll do my best when that one gets upstairs, committee. Let's take up House Bill 112 next. Theft penalty for fifth or subsequent offense. Again, Representative, thank you. Can you walk us through House Bill 112, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barry Crago, House District 40. Happy to present House Bill 112 and would ask for your favorable consideration this morning. So what House Bill 112 does is essentially it creates a stronger penalty for people who have committed theft within a 10-year, 5 times within a 10-year period. And that's really what it does. On the fifth offense within 10 years, it becomes a felony. We had this was one that got debated a lot on the floor, not so much in committee. I mean, we worked it in committee, but it was, there's the good representative. We worked it a lot on the floor, and we had lots of debate on the 10-year
Come on
10-year
up,
penalty
Representative.
and,
Good
or the
morning.
10-year timeframe, excuse me, and the appropriate penalty for that, and whether it should be 5 times within 10 years or 3 times within 5 years or whatever. And essentially, we kind of ended up back where we started. I can't remember what the vote, how it passed out, but it was, at the end of the day, it was fairly well supported on the House side. And that's really the intent of the bill. That's what it does. And Representative Oakley would be happy to stand for your questions.
Yeah. Appreciate that very much, Representative. Thanks for covering for a few minutes. And Representative Oakley, thanks for coming. Good morning. I am sorry, but your first bill sailed right through.
Oh,
Yeah.
I apologize. It went off of my first bills to present in front of you, and I just flat
It will
forgot.
get even crazier. You know how the crossover goes, but.
So pay attention,
That
is that what
middle
you're
fentanyl
saying?
bill, by the way, thanks to both of you. I can remember when we first discussed that, and it came to me from our public health folks, and you two had also come across that issue. So anyway, that bill is well on its way, but we are now on House Bill 112, and Representative would love to hear a little background on why you brought the bill.
And so I don't want to reiterate anything that's been said, and waste your time, but so theft is a very significant issue in my community, and it is in other communities across the state as well. So heard from the big box, retailers. I mean, I can say it here, the Target, Walmart around the country is talking about shutting some specific stores. Riverton has one of the highest rates. And specifically, so there's this organized, I mean, there's always theft in different ways, but we're seeing this big increase in like organized retail theft, is what they're saying, which we've always seen quite a bit of in Riverton. And we heard testimony from 2 of my very good community members, that one owns a grocery store in Lander, and one owns a tire store and convenience stores in both Lander and Riverton. And they just talked about the money that they put in, the stress that it is to be working on capturing them. Testimony we heard from her was there've been 7 so far this year that she's aware of. They've caught 1, so they're actively looking at the cameras and working on getting the others. But back to this organized retail theft. So I was using our example. We've called it the ribeye ring in just, joking or whatever, but that's what we've called it, because one of the big things to steal in our county is meat. And then, so again, people push back in this argument, people are just hungry, but people are, but that doesn't fit. They are taking good meat, high-end meat, volumes of it, and there's a resale market. I mean, we've had people tell us about it, right? I mean, I'm not making it up. I've had people when they're getting sentenced or whatever, he said, hey, it's just business, because they make a lot of money. Cosmetics are another one that's hit pretty hard. Electronics, something that's small but has a good resale value. So anyway, it is a very significant problem. It costs a lot of money, as far as the multiplier they talked about. Do you remember what Michelle said? It was like $1. A dollar loss translates to 100 or something. I wish she was here. That's also my fault that she's not. She was going to come. So she'll be disappointed. So with that, so here's the deal. Talking, and then I heard Mr. Crago talking about the in 5. So which is really important, because so a lot of ways that we enhanced crimes is due to time. Get your fourth DUI in 10 years, things like that. But this is different. This is enhancing because of recidivism, right? This is, so 5, which is a high number. I mean, some people did ask me why 3, but the idea is to hit this recidivism. And we have, I mean, again, you know, 1 chance, 2 chance, 3, 4. I mean, you've got to learn whatever. There's a point at which the criminal justice system needs to have some more teeth. We do have people that are double-digit convictions, and there's nothing except the in and out of the county jail. We have nothing else. So it does solve a problem, right? And then when the time limit started coming up, the reality is it actually it makes a big mistake out of it, because you either need to enhance, I would say, because of time or because of numbers. But if not, if you're doing both 5, which is a lot of convictions, and you do it in a period of time, it becomes useless. Let's say that, because I mean that would be getting a shoplifting or theft of any sort every 2 years and it dropping off. So it actually makes it like more difficult, and at some point loses the whole intent of it. So I would strongly urge not doing limiting it by the time that way, because this is hitting recidivism. That's what it's supposed to do. That's why it's a high number. That's the enhancement. So I think that's it. I do see somebody that testified in the House committee here. But so with that, I will stand for questions.
Representative, thank you. Question, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. On page 2, when I read through this, and again, it may just be my misunderstanding of what it's saying, but if there's a municipal ordinance that requires less or more, how does that work? Does this supersede that? Or does it matter if it's in the city or the county, or is it a combination of all of that? How does that work?
Go ahead, Representative. Jurisdiction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Schuler. So what that refers to, and I hope I'm answering your question, but I guess if not, you can follow up. So you can have these 4 convictions. They can be in municipal court, the 4 previous convictions. So when you're looking at a criminal record, can be in a municipal court, can be in a different county, different state, different. But of course, this being a felony then would have to be brought properly in one of our state courts. Is that your question? Because I know we had some discussion on this as well, that people were getting confused, saying, well, wait, they can't bring a felony in a municipal, like this somehow authorized that. This is only in reference to the different things that would be an acceptable conviction to use as the 4 prior. Does that make sense?
Further questions? Go ahead, Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Oakley, you mentioned a person's name who is involved in testifying for this, and would that be someone from an independent grocery store in Lander?
Go ahead, Representative.
Chairman Landon, Senator Casey Wood, and I and so yes, we're both all of us are mutual friends.
Yeah.
But not only did I forget and let this body down, she was going to come down today. She's going to be disappointed in me.
Well, you can reach, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You can certainly reach out and say that you did a good job over here.
Representative, please, that's partly my fault too, as the chairman. I apologize we didn't get out in front of this a little bit better. These are bills that I think my colleagues up here felt strongly about as well, and we wanted to get them up and moving, and well done on these bills. Any further questions for Representative Oakley? Thank you both. I'm going to go to testimony on this bill. So is there anyone who would like to testify on House Bill 112 this morning? House Bill 112. Please come forward. Thank you, Representative. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Committee. I'm Dale Steenberg, and I'm President, CEO of the Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce. I also represent the Wyoming Retail Association and the Wyoming Business and Industry Federation, which is a federation of chambers from around the state of Wyoming. We stand in support of this bill. Retail theft is really a problem, and I think we think about some of the bigger companies among us when we think of retail theft and where it hurts. But who it really hurts is our mom and pops on Main Street, right? The Walmart and Walgreens of the world, certainly it's a problem for them, but they have ways to combat this. It's very difficult if I am one of these Main Street businesses to face this off. And this is a growing problem. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce said, 50 million cost business in losses last year. And so I think about, my little retailers in downtown in Cheyenne. Maybe I'm a small store and I sell maybe 30 or 40 sales a day to maintain myself. If I lose one of those, my percentage is huge. So I would just encourage you to get this passed. Let's be tough on these guys and let's try to deter this into the future and protect our businesses across the state of Wyoming. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Steenberg, thank you very much. Questions? I've got one. Is it your sense that this is becoming a bigger problem?
This is accelerating quickly. So one of the things that we started looking into last year was we noticed, we just had the feeling that there was an increase from and this is in Cheyenne, so, but we felt that there was an increase of theft from Cheyenne. So we started talking to our sheriff and our police departments, and what really becomes problematic is these rings. So I heard it called the ribeye ring in one town the other day. I guess they're stealing meat, but they will come up and steal whole strands of product. And then you see your product online for sale, a day later or a week later. And so speaking with the sheriff and the chief at that time of police here in Cheyenne is like, we can't hardly deal with this. And so there needs to be some increase in punishment because I feel like it's accelerating quickly and it's something that our businesses are very concerned about. And I know talking to other chambers around the state, their members are expressing the same thing to them.
It's a big problem, Dale, for sure. It's a big problem up in my community. And I tell you, the folks, I worry about everyone in the retail industry for this, but some of the bigger stores employ good friends of the community who are up there in age, and they're put right in the fray when some of these thugs come in, and they'll go out of there with a circular saw or some big box of something, and it's really not up to them to try to get in the way to stop these people, but people have actually gotten hurt. So I appreciate your thoughts because it sure is a problem in my community.
So one of the interesting things, it's certainly a loss for these big companies and they support this vehemently. Yeah. But if I'm one of these bigger companies, I start tracking that I'm losing. I just move all this product. I got plenty of employees. I got resources. I move this product. So you will see that locked up behind the counter, which you see a lot these days, right? But if I'm a small retailer, when do I do that, right? Do I do that at 2:00 in the morning because that's the only time I have after working all day and doing my accounting and doing my HR paperwork, et cetera? It becomes an impossible problem for them. And so will this solve it all? No, but will it move us in the right direction? I think so, or at least let people know that we're taking it seriously and we're going to try to deal with this issue.
Appreciate it, Mr. Steenberg. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Committee.
Is there any further testimony on House Bill 112 this morning? Good morning, Representative. Once a representative, always a representative, I'll tell you that. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tyler Lindholm. I'm the state director for Wyoming Americans for Prosperity, which is a new chapter, a grassroots organization. And Americans for Prosperity, as you know, I've testified in front of you before, has a big hook for criminal justice reform. And that is a priority for this organization based on the predication that we've gone down the road of being tough on crime. And now the United States of America, as it currently sits, has the highest percentage of population in prison than anywhere in the world. That's not to say that criminals shouldn't be punished when they break the rules. And this is certainly a tough thing. And I would like to commend Representative Oakley. She brought an amendment on the House floor that improved this legislation somewhat by inserting on page 2, line 8, she inserted after jurisdiction, separately brought and tried, to ensure that there wasn't several charges at once that could automatically turn someone into a felon. So that being said, Mr. Chairman, your committee just recently passed legislation on restorative justice, essentially, restoring individuals that have gone through a life-changing event at some point and then clean their life up. And you endorse that ideology of being able to turn one's life around, being welcomed back into society, which I commend you for because I do believe that to be the right thing. My concern with this legislation and Americans for Prosperity's concern with this legislation has to do around the fact that there is no timeline, that an individual could be stealing a bunch of meat. I think it was brought up by the good representative that brought this legislation, steal 4 ribeyes at one point. And those ribeyes each one of those do not meet the level of monetary value to be a felony unto themselves. So they steal those 4 ribeyes. And then 10 years down the road, they want to feed their babies. Theft is not right. Theft is not okay. But I worry that there might be unintended consequences for something like this. On top of that, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Americans for Prosperity will never endorse a mandatory minimum. We believe in co-equal branches of the government, and the judiciary branch should have the capability to do that. That being said, Mr. Chairman, we don't disagree that there might be situations where a felony might be the correct route to go. And I think there's an easy amendment for this legislation just by striking shall and insert may. But I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. In regards to the timeline, there were several amendments that were brought during the House debate. One considered a 3-year time period. That was brought by Representative Provenza. My personal opinion, I believe that's way too short. I don't know the data on this. If they're happening in a relatively quick time, if a 3-year time period would be too short of a time period, it feels like too short of a time period. I'll leave that to your judgment. And then Representative Olson brought a time period within a 10-year time period. And that feels probably more appropriate, or even a 15-year time period, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, member of the committee, I guess what I'm asking you to do is put some sideboards or belt and suspenders on this deal so that we don't inadvertently ruin one person's life. And that's the real rub about this when we're talking about restorative justice. I'm not endorsing theft by any stretch of the imagination, but I did want to bring that to your attention because I think it's an important part of the discussion. And I didn't hear it yet this morning, so I wanted to help raise that.
Thank you, Mr. Lindholm. Appreciate your thoughts as always. Any questions? Thank you, Tyler. Good to see you. Good to see you this morning. Further testimony on House Bill 112. Anyone else in the room? Judy, is there anyone online this morning who would like to
No,
testify?
there's no one online.
Okay. Representative Oakley, I'll let you bring us home on this one, and then we're inclined to close testimony and move the bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Case, go ahead.
can we plan out there, what are the consequences of adding the may?
thank you, and I certainly will address that.
Thank you. Absolutely. That's where we wanted to go. Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the shall may thing is actually kind of important. And it's just people understanding how statutes actually function in the criminal justice system. So we had an amendment to do that may, but that would be in the incorrect place, because if you look at that paragraph, it starts out, that is your sentencing provision, so they're already convicted. So it starts out, upon a fifth conviction, the person who has had these prior convictions shall be convicted of a felony. So it would be incorrect and bizarre to say the person who's been convicted of a felony may be. So it's important to understand that's the sentencing provision. So it's no longer, that means you've already gone down the road, they're convicted, so they shall be convicted of a felony. So may would be incorrect there. And important in that though, so the may, if you're trying to get it may, giving discretion, that comes from your prosecutors, right? And that's also really important. There is no trigger that makes you convicted of a felony. A prosecutor has to choose the case. They have to charge it. They have to show the previous convictions. They have to do a preliminary hearing at the circuit court. And then they have to stand there and be ready and willing to take it to a jury trial in front of a district court. So I see a lot of these, like sort of what I would consider red herrings thrown in often. Nobody's going to take somebody for a sucker and spend their time and in front of a district court judge where, we do have discussions behind closed doors where I can tell you what a district court judge would say if you were putting a silly case on his docket, right? Not to mention, for example, last week, my boss was in a sex assault trial. I myself have done murder, rape trials. We don't try to make work for ourselves. I don't think there's probably anywhere around the state where that's where that's happening. So you got to. It's funny because in some ways, so the criminal justice reform folks, those prosecutors are. I mean, sometimes they say you're trying to put everybody in jail, and other times you're too light. But in the end, there is a balance. You do have, you trust the good people that, and if not, as we know, you can unelect them. But your prosecutors around the state are making these decisions, and this gives them a tool. This is by no means mandatory, and it wouldn't be used as such because that's just not how the criminal justice system works. So when I hear this, the reform, they've cleaned up their act. That's specifically, again, what number 5 is supposed to deal with. So even if they did get 4, when they were in their 20s, in their 30s, and then they cleaned up their act, well, then what are they doing? Doing something that is stealing, where they're getting a conviction, and they find themselves in the criminal justice system again. I didn't bring it this time. It doesn't matter, but I just knew of one person. I didn't use a name, but pulled up their criminal history in Fremont County because we have severely frequent flyers, if you will. And I just read it, and it was like, conviction 2010. There were several in 2011. There were like 4 sets in 2013. Then a forgery, then a conspiracy. The 2 and 14 were a conspiracy for for something like this. And then a theft anyway, and then there were a couple more. But using that as an example, this year, all of those, if you did a timeline, all those, the 2010, 11, the 3 in 2013, they'd all drop off. And so then you're left with those 3 or 4, and you're at a misdemeanor. It guts the intent of this bill. But again, I can tell you, we have the people that this is going after, they're organized. That's what they're doing. They've been convicted many times, and they will continue to do this. And I mean, we've had people tell us that. What's a few days in jail? It's worth it.
Thank you, Representative. Further questions, Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Oakley, as I read this, I see not more than 10 years or not more than $10,000. Would it be at a judge's discretion in certain conditions to impose something lesser?
Representative?
Chairman Landon, Senator Cooper, absolutely, absolutely. I heard something about a minimum, I don't know if, I'm trying to address another question, and then I'm trying to remember what that was in regards to. That absolutely happens, like, regularly. Very, very seldomly is somebody at the max are gonna bump up against the max. The only reason, you know, in egregious situations, when you've got a 10-year, which I would say we've got 10-year violent felonies, is probably more when you're gonna get closer to bumping up to that. And then even then, in every felony sentencing, a whole process is undergone called the pre-sentence investigation. A report is written. So probation and parole, in conjunction with actually a substance abuse provider, does a report, gives the entire criminal history, does a substance abuse evaluation, does all of that. And if they can look at doing probation, that's looked at first. And then probably when you're looking at a property crime, because these might not be your probate, because that would be the whole point, right? We're not getting anywhere with these misdemeanor sentences or probations. But then you would probably be looking at a lower term here. I would say if somebody were to serve, and again, it would be shown that they were egregious if they were serving at all. And you'd probably be looking at a 2 to 4, as an estimate. Each one's unique and different.
Any further questions, Senator Case?
Are a lot of these jury trials? Would they be?
Go ahead, Representative.
Chairman Linden, Senator Case, probably not. And I'll tell you why. Honestly, the things that go to trial are usually cases either like, let's say, a first-degree murder where there is a minimum. I mean, which is life in prison. So rolling the dice does, why not? Usually have a free attorney to boot. So, but and then also maybe something it's either confusing or maybe has maybe a problem with its evidence. By the time, if I would submit to you that probably a prosecutor bringing this has a nice video of them. You know what I mean? It's not going to be hard to prove. So, and then you get the previous judgment and sentences. So they would probably reach a plea agreement. I doubt this would be the case. These would be the types of cases because they would be readily provable if charged.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate it. Any final comments on 112? It's a good little bill. Thank you for bringing it.
Thank you, Senator Landon. The only final comment, I know I've said it, but I just want to apologize to you all again. Thank you for hearing my bills and hearing Representative Crago present them to you. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
It's never a problem, Representative. And again, wish we could have gotten out in front of it a little better. We wanted to get going on some of these good little House bills that you've sent to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. My fault. Thank you.
I'm going to close testimony committee on House Bill 112. What's your pleasure on this? Moved by Senator Schuler. Discussion. Any further discussion on this bill? Judy, would you take roll, please, on House Bill 112?
Senator Case,
Aye.
Senator Cooper,
Aye.
Senator Furphy,
Aye.
Senator Schuler,
Aye.
Chairman Landon.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there are 5 ayes on House Bill 112.
Okay, thank you, Representative. House Bill 112 has passed the Judiciary Committee and will head upstairs. Senator Cooper, would you be willing to grab this one on the floor for us?
Sir.
All right, we'll back you up if a fight breaks out, okay? So, thank you, Representative. Okay, we have another one of those good representatives with us this morning. Welcome, Representative Stith. Come on forward. We've got House Bill 97 in front of us, Chancery Court Jurisdiction Amendments. and we look forward to hearing about that bill. Take it away,
Mr.
Representative.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you so much. This bill is simple. It does modify the jurisdiction of the Chancery Court slightly, and it's very short. The amendment is to the Governmental Claims Act 1-39-117. And if you don't mind, I'll just read the whole thing here. As it currently reads, it says, original and exclusive jurisdiction for any claim filed in state court under this act, that's the Governmental Claims Act, shall be in the district courts of Wyoming, except that claims or counterclaims in an action based on a contract entered into by a governmental entity may be brought in the Chancery Court if the contract provides that the Chancery Court shall be the venue for disputes arising under the contract, and if the claim is otherwise within the jurisdiction of the Chancery Court. So what's the purpose of this, or what's the problem we're trying to solve? So it came up in the context of the State Treasurer's Office. They have investment contracts. The State Loan and Investment Board, along with the State Treasurer's Office, enter into contracts with investment advisors whereby the state will give $100 million to an investment advisor. And in all of those contracts right now, it provides that the venue shall be in the district courts of the state of Wyoming. And the problem with that potentially is that those are the kinds of cases where the state may want to be the party filing the lawsuit, because if you give $100 million to someone and if they misappropriate it or do something wrong with it, you may want to sue them. Right now, the state would have to sue them in district court. And if you go to district court, it tends to be a slower process because you've got all the criminal cases, you have all the divorce cases, you have Title 25, you have juvenile cases, many of which, 3 of those 4 categories take precedence over a case like this. So the Chancery Court is designed to be a court that deals with contract disputes and that goes really fast. Cases are supposed to be resolved in 6 months. And so in talking with the Treasurer's Office, I said, would you please put a venue clause in your contract to make the Chancery Court the venue? And the Treasurer's Office said, well, sure, we'd like to do that. And then they researched it and they found, well, if we do that, the problem is, yes, they can do that now. But if they do, if they bring a suit in Chancery Court right now, any counterclaim has to be heard in the district court. And now you have 2 lawsuits instead of 1. And so you don't gain any efficiencies at all. So they're not using the Chancery Court for that. What this says is that if the governmental entity, when it's negotiating the contract, if it wants to be in Chancery Court, then it could make that a venue provision. And then the entire case could be heard there. So the question is, well, why would you want to be in Chancery Court? One is the speed, and it kind of depends upon if the governmental entity wants cases to be resolved quickly. There's no jury in a Chancery Court. So it also depends upon whether you think you're going to be receiving money or whether you're going to owe money. Typically, people who think they might owe money don't want the court system to go fast, right? If you're a defendant and you have to pay money, you want to put off judgment day as long as possible. At the beginning, at the outset, when you're negotiating a contract, often the parties don't know who might be the plaintiff or the defendant. You don't necessarily know, and that's a good time to, I think, negotiate venue provisions. So that's the purpose of the bill. That's all it does. It's permissive. No governmental entity is going to be forced to pick the Chancery Court, but that would be a tool for the governmental entities, including the Treasurer's Office, if it so chose.
Appreciate that, Representative. Thank you. Questions? Good sponsor. You know, I've heard anecdotally from those in your profession that there seems to be some room in this Chancery Court. And lo and behold, I come to the session and that Representative Stith brought a bill for just that thing. There's probably other room, isn't there, for this sort of thing?
Mr. Chairman, that's true. Right now, the docket is pretty light in Chancery Court. I don't know the total number of cases, but I think it's maybe 24 cases pending in Chancery Court. That's probably not the exact number, but it's in that order of magnitude. In a typical court, you've got a few hundred at any given time. So it's been slow to get ramped up. As you know, we don't have a dedicated Chancery Court judge yet, partly for that reason. We keep putting it off each year because the volume is just not there, and the judges who fill in and sit as the Chancery Court judge tend to be district court judges from around the state.
So go ahead, Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Stiff, would you, it looks to me like this is probably something that we simply overlooked as we were setting up the Chancery Court. Is that correct? So this is just a correction to the issue?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cooper, I think that's right. It didn't occur to me. I thought that the government would be able to pick it as a venue clause until the counsel inside the treasurer's office pointed out to me that they could, but it just wouldn't work very well.
That cross-reference representative that you made with the district court venue, if you could help us with those notes, I would appreciate that, to be able to defend this up on the floor. That would be really helpful. I'm not sure if either one of your co-sponsors wants to take the bill up on the floor, but we'll do our best with it if it does pass out of the committee this morning. But those notes would be very helpful. You, of course, could fly right off the top of your head in the profession you're in, but that would be really helpful to us if you could help us with that piece.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Okay, we're stand by real quickly, Representative. We may need to come back to you, but I want to go to testimony on the Chancery Court bill, House Bill 97. Is there any testimony online? Nobody to testify. Okay, so let's close testimony on House Bill 97. Move to pass by Senator Case. Discussion. Okay, Judy, please take roll on House Bill 97.
Senator Case,
Aye.
Senator Cooper.
Aye.
Senator Furphy,
Aye.
Senator Schuler,
Aye.
and Chairman Landon.
Aye.
Senator Lemon, I'd be happy to take this one on the
Thank
floor.
you. Thank
And I
you.
sit next to Coach Nethercott.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're right by
row.
you're right by the coach. So
It's like she's like a crew captain of a rowing team there.
I know. We get done with the session upstairs, and everybody just gathers in that back corner. Obviously, to visit with the good Senator Case too, but mostly to visit with Senator Nethercott.
But if I could get a chance, I think I understand the explanation, but I get a little bit more from you, Representative. That'd be good.
That would be terrific. So Senator Case, you can have that one up on the floor. Really appreciate it. Not much else for the good of the cause committee, but I will say that, and I mentioned this, 7:30 on Monday morning, the co-chairman and I have put together another little presentation for the joint committee. We'll meet in the Historic Supreme Court chamber and hear from some folks on child endangerment issues and some things that I think might be useful to us as we move forward. And then we may take up a bill at 8:30 and work one bill on Monday morning, just to keep the oars in the water.
When we come down here, we're going to be up there.
We'll probably come down here and work one bill. And so we'll get that decided, and that way we can continue to get through some of them. We will refer a couple of bills to the good Senator Schuler, probably. So you'll hear that up on the floor. That'll clean the docket out a little bit. We've got several bills that have come to Judiciary. So, okay.